so that Brenda Fry's daughter doesn't get pushed in the schoolyard in 2nd grade because she won't say under God in the pledge because her family do identify as atheists. So, did I understand you correctly in the answer to the first question? Because I often make analogies to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender movement,
right.
And I don't see how any movement can really progress if we don't identify ourselves.
Yeah, again, I'm open to argument on this subject, obviously, and maybe there's a word that is better than other words. I think secular is better, probably, than atheist. Humanist is better. I mean, if I had to pick one, I would pick something on that end of the spectrum. But again, I think it is, as a matter of just ideas, it seems unnecessary to me. And again, the example with racism seems most instructive to me because we haven't dubbed ourselves the antithesis of being racist. We've simply noticed all the mad work done in the name of ridiculous racial ideologies and fought those ideologies. And that's and obviously that fight continues. But it's at no point will I think it won't be a brilliant idea for anyone to say, aha, what we really need to do to just drive the nail in the coffin of racism is to name ourselves whatever it is, bright non-racists. And so I mean, maybe this is a transitional issue. Maybe it's true that it's necessary now and it's gotten us this far and it's sold books, or maybe not. But I just think I'm skeptical of. We didn't wake up one day feeling like we needed a label. I mean, people are telling us that we need a label. They're saying, so what are you? You don't believe in God, so what are you? Are you fill in the blank? And so we're playing a language game with people, and we, for the most part, because it's such a hassle to point out how ridiculous this is, we're saying, yeah, no, I'm an atheist. And pretty much that ends the conversation. It's not. Why not point out how ridiculous? I mean, there are many moves that we all make that I advocate and that are in the service of this. I mean, Richard's move of raising consciousness, point out the Christian child and the Buddhist child and the atheist child. I mean, that's ridiculous, and yet so few people realize that. I don't know. I mean, it's with some. You can imagine it's with some trepidation that I float this lead balloon for all of you to yeah.
Sam, I'd like to explore a little bit this interest of yours in mysticism and in contemplatives. You anticipate that I'm going to disagree with you violently. And I think from what you've said, maybe I don't disagree much at all. Or if I do, it's about whether you should do it for days or weeks, or whether maybe an hour is what's needed. I mean, I was courted by the TM people, the Transcendental Meditation people, to be their philosopher laureate for a while, and I looked at that and got into it a little bit and got interested. And still, when I need to calm down and sort of center myself again, I go into that routine. I always put a little timer on so I don't go to sleep every single day. And so I guess I'm a novice. But it's useful, it's wonderful. And so I agree that there's, if you ignore the prospect that such solitude and deliberate emptying of your mind can stop the noise and give you some insights, I agree entirely with that. What I haven't been persuaded of, and it seems maybe you have, I don't know why, is that if we look at the history of the more extreme contemplatives, the people who often would cave for years and years, or ascetics of one sort or another, what would lure me into their enterprise is if they came back with something that sounded really interesting. And for the life of me, it doesn't seem to me that their track record is very good.
Right.
I don't think you can list 3 interesting, really interesting, novel, original things that have come out of any of them. So that seems to me to be a sort of waste of time and effort.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's good. It's nowhere written that anything worth exploring or getting good at can be easily explored or easily acquired as a skill. And we know this from science. We know this from basically every human endeavor. I mean, how do you get good enough to be able to hit a golf ball like Tiger Woods? Well, unfortunately, you can't do it in an hour. And you can't do it just an hour a day. And most of us can't do it even if we purposed our entire existence toward that goal. So you need the right genes, you need to start when you're 2 years old, whatever. So there is just this inconvenient fact that some of the more grandiose and interesting descriptions within the contemplative literature are somewhat difficult to cash out. And I mean, for one which I think is interesting, which actually converges with our area of interest in the philosophy of mind and neuroscience, is that really the central experience of many of these traditions, certainly the traditions within Buddhism, is to lose the sense of the subjective self. I mean, the sense of being a thinker of your thoughts, the experiencer apart from your experience. And most of us think that there's our experience, and then there's an I somewhere behind our eyes appropriating this experience moment to moment, thinking our thoughts. Now, as you know, at the level of the brain, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, some significant meditation often reveals, doesn't make any sense at a level of our subjectivity. It's possible to lose the sense of being separate from one's experience and of riding around in one's head through meditation, and it can take some people years to do it, and there are some people who do it and they do it haphazardly. They don't know what they did with their attention to bring that on, and there are some people who actually master the skill of being at any moment able to actually just drop their sense of self, and this, it is reported, has many psychological benefits. I mean, it reduces anxiety, it reduces hatred, it reduces fear, and actually what you're left with when you do that more and more are rather good feelings. I mean, rather, compassion. And this is let's say this is true. It may not be true, but let's say it's true that there is a way of training attention so as to more and more encourage compassion toward the suffering of others and encourage sympathetic joy at other people's success rather than envy where you would otherwise feel it. And you actually can train positive emotions as a skill. This is certainly the testimony of any Buddhist worth his salt, and nobody says it's easy. And obviously, people like Richie Davidson are studying this in the lab with that functional MRI. I can just say, it's very common for people to go on a 3-month meditation retreat where literally this is all they're doing for 18 hours a day. And in the beginning, and the only thing they have to do is pay attention to their breathing in this practice, which is different from TM. And this sounds like the most boring thing in the world, and why would anyone do this? But you begin to notice some rather startling things when you try to do this. So you first notice that it's almost impossible to do. I mean, your mind, you are just not built to. I mean, I can tell you, if I asked you all to just stop thinking and pay attention to your breath for the next 60 seconds and don't get lost in thought, there's not a person in this room very likely who could do it. I mean, if the fate of the earth depended on it, we couldn't do it. I mean, this is a remarkable fact about ourselves. And yet it is, when you look at it closely, this habitual entanglement with discursive thought, when you look at what we're thinking, all of the cranky, worthless thoughts we tend to think throughout the day, it is the tissue, it is the thread on which much of our suffering is strung. And I can just say that it is, it's not science. This is not, you certainly don't become aware of the neural underpinnings of all of this by doing it. But it opens you to a range of experience where the words of the mystics actually make sense and can reliably be divorced from their crazy metaphysics. So when Jesus says, "Love your neighbor as yourself," who we are most of the time, that just seems like an impossible task, and maybe it's not even desirable. But there are experiences that people can have where they really do find they love a total stranger as themselves. And I think at some point we will understand just what love is at the level of the brain and how to encourage it and what blocks it and et cetera, and we'll know a lot more about the most positive end of human experience. But when we know that, I think we'll also recognize that certain people, by dint of their efforts in this area, have become a kind of moral athletes. I mean, there is a Tiger Woods of compassion out there. And he got there by some considerable effort. Now, maybe we'll have a pill to get us there in the future, but you have to acknowledge, I think we have to acknowledge there's a spectrum of positive mental attributes. I don't know if I answered your question, Dan, but thank you.